MicroStrategy's zero interest rate convertible debt from 2021 to today is up more than 200% from par. So it was issued at a dollar or $100 on the $100 par value. It's now at 300 plus. The convertible, that does not happen in the bond market. That never happens. It's the best performing debt instrument in the world from par. The convertible, zero interest rate convertible note. Why? Because it's it's a Bitcoin proxy. That volatility, that mark-to-market volatility of your shares, of your common stock, of your balance sheet is not a weakness. That's a strength. And people don't understand why that's a strength, right? Like Bitcoin's so volatile, Sailor, you're crazy. MicroStrategy is even more volatile, Sailor, you're a madman. That's the entire reason they can borrow at zero.
Yeah.
Since its inception in 2009, Bitcoin has revolutionized the finance world, evolving from a niche digital experiment to a mainstream asset often dubbed digital gold. Its decentralized nature, limited supply, and high return potential have attracted diverse investors. Within this rapidly changing scenario, strategic innovations are increasingly evident, illustrating Bitcoin's significant impact. Dylan LeClaire's journey from business student to crypto community leader exemplifies this trend. His new role at Metaplanet, a publicly traded Japanese company, focuses on increasing Bitcoin holdings. His latest insight touches on the growing number of businesses, both direct and investment funds, that are investing in Bitcoin. One such business, MicroStrategy, employs a unique Bitcoin investment strategy with convertible notes that convert to Bitcoin, yielding over 200% returns. Despite adding volatility, it attracts bond investors with zero interest borrowing against its Bitcoin holdings, opening new financial avenues and opportunities for Bitcoin investors. As we bring you clips from Dylan LeClaire's recent interview, please take a little time to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. Thanks and enjoy the video.
In the U.S. and they got a call, a friend of a friend about an opportunity in Japan, and they graciously looped me in, and UTXO made an investment. But this company is Metaplanet. It's a smaller company. Was formerly had 30 hotels across Tokyo, Japan, and Thailand. More kind of budget hotels. That was hit really hard in COVID. So they sold 29 out of the 30 hotels, cleared off all of the debt, because commercial real estate, to juice it up, you got to get leverage. And was, basically after they cleaned off all the debt, was looking for a pivot. And so the CEO was kind of in the crypto world behind the scenes for just, as he's a former Simon Garovich CEO, a former Goldman Sachs derivatives trader, equity derivatives, Bitcoin crypto, loves the volatility. And so we talked with him. I talked with him for 50 hours, and I was like, and the wheels were already turning here, but it was like, this is the strategy, and this is, especially in Japan, right? Highest debt to GDP in the world, low interest rates, the yen's at 35-year lows against the dollar. This is a no-brainer. On those lines, I think it's interesting. Semler Scientific in the U.S., a healthcare company. That is, I think spits out a decent amount of, like 10 something million a year in profit. Had, what is it? I think they had like $80 million of cash on their balance sheet. Or 60 million. They just put 40 million of that into Bitcoin. So they have like 530 Bitcoin now. They've said that they're adopting Bitcoin as a primary treasury reserve asset. Their stock has seen the 2 days of trading volume to end the week was 17 times higher than the previous year's volume on average for daily trading, and the Bitcoin has not even appreciated. They're actually down in their Bitcoin purchase. The market cap has increased from 160 million to like 230 million. So the market is speaking.
Yeah.
And I think this will be somewhat of a meta, and not Metaplanet, but somewhat of a meta or a trend. This Bitcoin cycle of, okay, the market, we're doing a Bitcoin strategy, stock up 30, for Semler Scientific, it was up 30% on the day. It was like, wait, what? And so that challenges, something like that, or, MicroStrategy trading at 25 billion and the Bitcoin being worth 12 or 14 or whatever it may be. These things all challenge the efficient market hypothesis, right? Where when in 23, let's just say for easy math, MicroStrategy is worth 10 billion or 5 billion, right? They're worth 5 billion. Saylor comes out and says, we're going to issue 500 million of stock to buy Bitcoin. So the efficient market hypothesis would say when trading opens at 9:30 in New York, the stock should be down 10%, right? They're diluting by 10%. The stock should be down by 10% or so because they're diluting. That's how it works typically. What would happen is MicroStrategy, they did this like 3 or 4 times, just pure equity dilution, not debt deals, not converts. Let's just say Bitcoin's flat for the sake of this scenario. Yeah. The stock would open up flat or maybe even a tick upwards because everyone that holds MicroStrategy knows it's a Bitcoin play and they want more Bitcoin. And so if it's trading at a little bit of a premium, great. They sell shares, dilute shares outstanding, have more cash, buy more Bitcoin, aggregate treasury increases greatly, and the Bitcoin per share ticks up.
Dylan LeClaire invested in Metaplanet, a smaller business that had owned 30 low-cost hotels in Tokyo and Thailand, after receiving a call from a friend regarding an opportunity in Japan. After being severely impacted by COVID-19, the company liquidated 29 hotels to pay off debt. The CEO, a former derivatives trader at Goldman Sachs, is passionate about volatility and cryptocurrencies. Dylan joins as director of Bitcoin strategy while continuing to work with Bitcoin Magazine following a 50-hour conversation. Metaplanet is investing in Bitcoin by taking advantage of the weak yen and cheap interest rates in Japan. Comparably, Semler Scientific, a U.S. healthcare company, adopted Bitcoin as its main treasury reserve asset by investing $40 million of its $60 million. Their market capitalization jumped from $160 million to $230 million, and their stock volume increased 17 times faster than the norm. Even though the value of Bitcoin did not increase, the efficient market hypothesis is called into question by this, as businesses such as MicroStrategy, which trade at $25 billion with $12 to $14 billion in Bitcoin, dilute shares by issuing stock to purchase additional Bitcoin. Still, investors desire more exposure to Bitcoin, so the stock doesn't always lose value. This contradicts the conventional Wall Street story about using borrowed funds to repurchase stock while exhausting treasuries. Companies are using Bitcoin, on the other hand, to boost the value of their treasury. As you watch more clips from Dylan LeClaire's interview, you will gain more insights into MicroStrategy and its unique approach to Bitcoin investment.
And Japan is interesting because, Mt. Gox happened there. Obviously, the yen is very weak, but Bitcoin is kind of just viewed as another casino chip. And our messaging is very clear, and we're still working at kind of getting more in touch with. We're obviously traded in Japan, but we're still working on getting in touch with the community there and the messaging there. Right? I don't speak Japanese. I wish I did, but even then, if I did, I'm not a local there. I'm not native. We want to be on the front of the messaging, the signaling here. That look, this isn't it's not like necessarily their fault or like the end of the world that the debt situation is what it is. We're not pointing any fingers, but this is a reality. And Bitcoin is this, still pretty nascent despite being $1 trillion engineering solution to this big, massive problem. And so, doing it through a corporate entity, it obviously doesn't present the sovereignty that, Bitcoin in a cold storage solution does. But if we can, give not only equity investors, but also, debt investors, Bitcoin exposure. And when I say debt investors, this is the one thing I don't think anyone understands. MicroStrategy through these convertible notes, right? Like in a rising rate environment, the 10-year yield went from 1% to 5% from 2021 to today, or 4.5%. MicroStrategy's zero interest rate convertible debt from 2021 to today is up more than 200% from par. So it was issued at a dollar or $100 on the $100 par value. It's now at 300 plus. The convertible, that does not happen in the bond market. That never happens. It's the best performing debt instrument in the world from par. The convertible, zero interest rate convertible note. Why? Because it's big. It's a Bitcoin proxy. So the stock, is a big story. Their Bitcoin holdings are a big story. They have 1% of the Bitcoin supply, which is massive. But the convertible note, taking your balance sheet, Bitcoinizing the balance sheet, not only Bitcoinizing, because Bitcoin's notoriously volatile, right? but also adding a sprinkle of liabilities to your asset liability balance sheet. So you get levered Bitcoin, right? And then that volatility, that mark-to-market volatility of your shares, of your common stock, of your balance sheet is not a weakness. That's a strength. And people don't understand why that's a strength, right? Like Bitcoin's so volatile, Saylor, you're crazy. MicroStrategy is even more volatile, Saylor, you're a madman. That's the entire reason they can borrow at zero.
Yeah.
Because the bond math of a convertible note, they're not like, the narrative is good that, oh, these bond investors, they love Bitcoin, or like myself or like others, they love listening to Saylor on a podcast, and that's not what it is. Even though that might be a good story to tell. They're just looking at, similar to how options trader would look at if you go on say Robinhood and you're looking at the value of calls and puts out of the money, stock's at 10, a call for 15 or a put at 5, the value of that for a stock that doesn't move at all and is just flat and dead, those options are worth nothing. But if you crank the volatility from 20% annualized to 100% annualized for that stock that's trading at $10, the $15 calls and $5 puts are really, really valuable. So MicroStrategy can borrow at zero because they have a balance sheet that's Bitcoinized, and not only 100% Bitcoinized, 120% Bitcoinized. And so this is the crack in the matrix. And this is how they're borrowing at 50 basis points with a 10-year at 5%. In theory, if the cost of capital was 1% with a weaker currency, what could you borrow at? So that's what we're going to explore, and we haven't done it yet, but that's what we're excited to do.
Meanwhile, Greg Foss, in a recent post on Twitter, makes a bold Bitcoin statement. He compares Bitcoin today to Microsoft in 1992, highlighting the potential for massive growth. Just as Microsoft revolutionized technology and grew from $2 to $450 per share, Bitcoin is seen as poised for similar success. He has this to say: why is Bitcoin's price today similar to Microsoft's stock price in 1992? Microsoft was priced at about $2 per share back then, and is now $450 in 2024. In 92, I was working on a consulting contract at the Bank of Boston. The project was capital allocation and risk pricing for their various businesses. It was mandated by the Fed because the bank was insolvent. Previously, I had worked at Canada's largest bank, RBC, and the software packages we used were WordPerfect and Lotus 123. The two programs didn't talk to one another. Microsoft designed Excel and Word to talk to one another so that importing info was simple and quick. Excel was almost as good as Lotus 123, and Word was better than WP in my opinion. But the most important improvement was the ease of combining documents and charts and macro programming. I was blown away. Here was an insolvent small New England bank that had already jumped to a new system standard, while RBC was slower to adapt. When I returned to Canada after my 5-month contract, I told everyone to buy Microsoft stock. Lotus 123 was private and you couldn't short it, but my thesis was that Microsoft would dominate the landscape for spreadsheets. At the time, Microsoft stock was $2 a share. 30 years later, it is 225x higher. Bitcoin is in the same position today as Microsoft in 1992. He then ended his tweet by giving a word of advice to every investor. The advice is straightforward: buy and hold Bitcoin, anticipating that it could dominate and increase substantially in value. As we conclude, what are your thoughts on this interview? What other approach to Bitcoin investment do you have up your sleeves? Please drop your thoughts in the comments below, share this video, and hit your thumbs on the like button. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.